on a national holiday, Martin Luther King Day. Welcome you all. This BIPOC roundtable is here to have uncomfortable conversations with our siblings, to share our hearts and to listen. I'm a mother first. I'm a mother of 5 siblings. I don't have all the answers, so I come to listen, to learn, and to bring our communities together. Today, I'll be introducing our wonderful, wonderful panelist and our amazing moderator. But first, I want to give a couple of rules that we are all here in this safe space where we respect and appreciate one another. We're here to listen and learn from one another. We're here because we care and we have room to grow. I really appreciate everybody for being here tonight. I would like to first ask everybody to participate in this poll. We have 4 questions because we want to know who's in the room with us today. You will see a poll that is popping up in front of you. We're asking everybody to please take it. And that just gives us a better idea of who we're speaking with and who everybody's going to be will be sharing. So we'll take a couple of moments and you guys just fill that information out for us. Also, if you have any questions during the roundtable, please leave them in the chat. We'll be answering it at a Q&A at the end. We will have 60 minutes or approximately 60 minutes of the roundtable discussion, and then we'll have 30 minutes to chat. So if you have any questions or any comments, please be leaving them as we're as our amazing panelists and moderator are talking. Thank you all I see you guys answering those questions. I really appreciate that. I'm going to take a moment to introduce everybody. I would like to first introduce you to our amazing moderator, Lisa Matthews. She currently serves as the DC chapter representative and board member for the Sibling Leadership Network. She currently resides in Washington, DC. And we have Atikah Bagawan. She's from Indonesia and she's a research assistant at Michigan State University, pursuing a PhD in human development and family studies. We have Kimrah Brotherson, located in Fairbanks, Alaska. She is manager for Hertz, pursuing her doctorate in business. She resides there, and she's a full active legal guardian and advocate for her sister. We have Elda Amario. She's a registered psychotherapist, Filipino, special needs sibling who currently resides in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She works as a psychotherapist in community mental health and private practice, supporting children, youth, families dealing with a variety of issues, including mental health conditions, developmental disabilities, and life transitions. We have Samantha Johnson. She grew up in Sacramento, California, but she currently resides in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, as a high school educator. She is passionate about urban education and believes that teaching, learning is the key to transformational change in the world. And we have Lyle Lasala, is a recent graduate from the University of Washington in Seattle, studying medical anthropology and global health. He focused coursework on health, medicine, disability, culture, and technology. I would like for you all to continue filling out that poll for us. Thank you all. And Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeniece. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here as well as with these amazing panelists for us to be able to continue the conversation that we had back in November, BIPOC Roundtable. I want to make sure that everyone just knows that none of us are experts here. Jeniece mentioned that she's a parent, but as siblings, we all come to this with different perspectives, looking for a sense of community and just want to be able to share our experiences with hopes of just being able to allow everyone into this space and to get a better sense of what other resources are out there. With that, I want to start into a few questions and just for us to begin to have a conversation. We're going to have this conversation for about an hour. So in the 9 o'clock hour, we will turn it over to you all to ask questions for us. And we should wrap up by 9:30. If there are questions that you guys have along the way, please put them in the chat and Jeniece will take a look at them as we're moving on, and she will let us know what questions are there. And if there's for someone specific, just please let us know that as well. And if it's just more general, we will just open it to the panelists to respond. So with that, I'd like to have each of the panelists to give a little more of an introduction of themselves than what Jeniece provided. And in your introduction, I just want you guys to just share a little bit more about yourself and your sibling with special needs, where you both live, what you do during the day, yourself as well as your sibling, the nature of your sibling's disability, and where you guys fall in order of age difference. Atikah, I'd like to start with you.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Atikah. I do have a brother. His name is Zaki, and he is 1.5 years younger than me. And his diagnosis was PDD-NOS, which now is his autism. Right now he's in Indonesia. He's living with my parents. There's not a lot of services in Indonesia for adults with disabilities, so he's at home helping around the house. And so my family are in Indonesia right now. I came here for my bachelor's and my background in special education. And now I am doing my PhD and I concentrate in diverse families of individual with disabilities and training and development for people who work with individual with disabilities.
Thank you. Elda?
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Elda. I am second of 5 siblings, 2 of which have special needs. So the third of us, her name is Mac. She has a rare genetic skin disorder called lamellar ichthyosis, which basically means she does not sweat at all. Her sweat glands aren't working, which, means she's not able to regulate temperature, right? Which is very difficult for someone that lives in a tropical country like the Philippines, okay? My fourth sibling has an Asperger's disorder diagnosis, well, now ASD. He has struggles with emotional regulation, but has a very strong independent life skills. He is currently working, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. He's been in his job as part of a research team for something like Google Maps, but specifically for the Philippines, right? Because he's crazy about geography. He loves maps and public transportation. So all of my family are in the Philippines, and I am a Filipino immigrant. I moved to Toronto 2 years ago, where I'm currently working as a registered psychotherapist, both in private practice and in community mental health, where I'm learning a lot about supports for this community. And I'm just so surprised because we don't have this back in the Philippines. When I first got here, I didn't even know what respite meant. I'm like, what respite? You have that? Like, wow. I thought we all had to do it by ourselves. So I would call myself the parentified child, meaning I grew up really very involved with the care of my siblings, attending parent-teacher conferences and meetings with doctors and any other service provider.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Elda. Sam, would you like to go next?
Love to. Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Johnson. Like they said, I am originally from California, Sacramento, California, but currently live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I am a high school educator. I'm an administrator right now, and it's a crazy time to be working in schools. And I'm just really passionate about education and the potential it has to just change our world for the better. It's kind of what gets me out of bed every day. I have a sister who has Down syndrome. She is 2 years older than I am. And during the day, I think similar to some other siblings that folks have mentioned, she's pretty much just helping around the house, kind of living her life and living with my mom out in California. And what really brought me here today was one, like really wanting a sense of community, feeling really isolated as a sibling, and two, I'm getting older, my mom's getting older, everybody's getting older, and I know there's going to become a time in the next couple of years where we're going to have to hand off some care and figure out some things, and I really wanted to have a community as I started to think about those choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyle?
Thanks, Lisa. I'm Lyle. So I am from Seattle, or 20-30 minutes north from Seattle. Me and my brothers are based in Linwood, Washington. And not only do I have one, but I have two brothers who are on the autism spectrum. I have one brother who has a severe case of autism and he's nonverbal. And my other brother, he's the oldest, is highly functioning, and I'm the youngest. And growing up was obviously a challenge, and I basically had to be kind of like the third parent and kind of had to figure things out all by myself. I would also, to give context, I'm Filipino American, and I was actually born in the Philippines, but I moved here when I was 1, so I basically grew up here. But for my immigrant parents to kind of figure everything out, it was definitely a challenge. So I knew at a young age I had to help out. I'm sure everyone in the room can relate in some manner. And I knew in college that as I get older, my siblings are getting older too, and my parents are getting older too. So I wanted a way to kind of help out, and found out about this type of ordeal, and I'm happy to be a part of it and be an advocate.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lyle. And Kimrah, would you like to close us out with this first question here on the introductions?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimrah Brotherson, and I live in Fairbanks, Alaska. I am the active legal guardian for my sister as well as advocate. She lives with me here in Alaska. Originally, we're from the Virgin Islands, so it's definitely a different atmosphere, but even looking for resources is pretty hard out here. So that's one reason why I joined this roundtable, to find out more resources in order to even spread to my community. I am a manager at a local rental car company. So with that, I am also going to school to do my doctorate's degree in business. My sister, she is diagnosed with autism as well as a cognitive mental disability. I have a little brother as well with autism. So I am the oldest, and sometimes being the oldest child, you feel like it's your responsibility. So I definitely had a lot of hands-on, even though I learned later on that they had a disability. But I just took it and ran with it, and I'm just their biggest cheerleader, their biggest supporter in everything they do. And just keeping my ears open for new things to put them in and keep them active as well to learn life skills.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So I'm just curious, how did you guys learn about your siblings' disability? And any of you can jump in. I know that you all have made it known that you have all stepped in and stepped up to be the one to help your parents support your siblings, but how did you actually learn about your siblings' disability?
Well, I didn't learn about it until later on down the line, where I noticed a few things where they constantly call you for help, and I'm like, why can't you do it yourself? But then I
Are you referring to your siblings when you say they ask you for help?
Yes, my siblings.
Yeah.
You know, especially with you being the oldest, of course, they're probably gonna come to the older sister or sibling first. But you know, just taking her everywhere with me, and then you know, just overhearing conversations between parents, teachers, and we went to private school when we were younger, so finding out that they couldn't fulfill her needs, that's how I figured out that she had special needs.
Gotcha. And Lyle, you mentioned that you're the youngest. So how did you step into a leadership role with your siblings?
Yeah, so I knew I figured out my brother's disability when we first started elementary school. So my elementary school didn't have a special education program, and they had to go to a different elementary school like just miles away. So, and over time, as they developed, I figured out some things that they were struggling with. And obviously, just like as a brother, you try to help out, but there's that dynamic where it's like, oh, like I'm like 6, 7, and they're struggling with like, I don't know, like tying their shoes or something. So as I got older and stuff, I knew that's kind of the status quo of my life, and I just kind of took upon it to kind of just be the caretaker and kind of just be that big brother, kind of like take up that big brother role.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. I am probably a bit older than most of you on the panel. And Sam, I'll jump to you in a second. I just wanted to say real quick for me that in growing up for me, a lot of things, the word disability, special needs, and the like just were not in the dynamics of my family or just even in my community. And my earlier experience was more of me just seeing my mom taking my brother Michael to different doctor's appointments. And it just wasn't until he was in his late teens that a situation just kind of sparked to where I recognized that I probably should be paying more attention to what's going on here. And I just pretty much started just kind of combing through his files and documents. And that's when I first saw the word autism. And so I just don't think that it was as prevalently known as it is today. And from there, I typically knew that it was my role to just try to learn more to support my mother, because a lot of the things that, even though we're all in this space now trying to figure out what resources look like, even back then, it was even more limited, and people just didn't talk about their family members with a disability. And there was this stigma of having a sense of shame and that sort of thing. So my mom didn't know what to ask and pretty much just took on whatever the system gave her. Sam, go ahead. Sorry about that. I just felt the need to jump in.
No problem. I remember very clearly when I found out my sister is 2 years older than I am, and I have a brother that's 3 years younger than I am. So I was a pretty happy middle child. And Yay. I was 8. I was like around 8, and my mom had been trying to homeschool us for a while. And I just remember really clearly, like my brother and I would kind of get stuff, and she would just be like yelling at my sister because like she just wasn't getting it. She wasn't understanding. She wasn't learning how to read. She was a lot older. And I guess my mom, she must have taken her somewhere to get like, I don't know, diagnosed, or that's not the right word. But, and I remember she came back and she just told me, she was like, hey, I just found out something's going on with Jessica. Like she'll probably never get past like a 6th grade like reading level. Like I really need your help. I need you to step up for her and for the family. And I didn't even learn what my sister's disability was until I was in college, honestly, because I had like a lot of like resentment and shame around it. So, but yeah, like that is definitely a turning point in my life, is like finding out my sister had that disability.
Yeah. Atikah or Elda, do you guys want to chime in on this?
Yeah, so a little backtrack. So my family came here when I was younger, and I just noticed that my mom goes to seminars a lot. So we're from Indonesia, so we came to like up in California for about 2.5 years, and then in Houston. And all those times I would be in school, and my youngest brother, who's 9 years younger than me, like I would take care of him because my mom would be busy going around seminars and trying to learn about autism, because there's no such thing in Indonesia. Like, it's not a thing. So yeah, and then when we came back to Indonesia, I was in that 3rd grade, but I didn't know, like all this time, I thought everyone's brother is like my brother. I thought everyone's mom is like my mom, like going to seminars and they have to take care of their little brother. But then when we came back to Indonesia, my parents were very frustrated, and I could see that there's a lot of heat at home, and because they're frustrated with the system. Like, my brother had education here. When they came back, there's nothing. So they make their own system. So they opened a school. And so I grew up with kids with various disabilities. And so again, I just thought everyone like has, like there's no label or diagnosis or whatever. But I heard the word autism being thrown around, PPD notes being thrown around here and there, because I always went with my mom for therapy, and like Elda, right? Like, you go where your parents go when you give services to your brother. But I just heard them, but it was never really like explained to me. And I just like start to caught up on my own, like, oh, okay, if he doesn't know how to do this, like I have to step up and help him. And if my parents are busy with my other brother, I have to step up doing the other kind of work that my parents are usually doing, but I'm covering it for them.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Thank you. Real quick, before we go into the next question, I wanted to ask Jeniece if she wanted to give us an update of the responses to the poll, just so that we can all have a general sense of who's in this space with us right now. You're unmuted.
I'm muted, I'm sorry.
You good?
I sure can. It looks like we have 63% of siblings in our midst today. We have 40%, we have professionals in their fields that are present. And then we have 10% that's a parent. So we have parents. And then our age range, we're ranging from predominantly 25 to 34, which is 43%. We have 20% 45 to 54. And then we have that 35 to 44. So we have a good little mix of everybody. And a lot of our people are in the West Coast area. So we have over 40% there, and then 30% in the Northeast area. And everyone pretty much heard about our event through social media and word of mouth. So I'm glad you guys are sharing it. And it's going really well. So let me go ahead and pop off here again.
Thank you so much, Jeniece.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. And Elda, before we move on, I don't know if you have anything that you want to respond to related to that question about how you learned about your siblings' disability.
Yeah, sure. Well, for my sister, it was pretty obvious because her skin was very, very delicate. You know, that moment that she was taken back home from the hospital, like I can see her, I can smell her, so I knew right then and there. For my brother, who has an ASD diagnosis, it started with him growing up, still not having eye contact with us, you know, the first red flags you'd see. And then it took a while, like it started to make me wonder about why is it that we weren't able to play with him. Like he would prefer playing by himself, lining up Legos and getting so mad when we hit that, right? So those were the early signs that I saw in my brother.
Gotcha. Okay. So what type of challenges and opportunities did your siblings' disability or illness cause for you? And anyone can jump in here. I know, I'll just say real quick, I know, Atikah, you mentioned that in your parents' frustrations that they didn't have the means of providing education, so they basically built the school to do that. Can you talk a little bit more about that and like what lessons learned were there or what the experience was like?
Yeah, so those, like one of the challenges that we faced, there weren't a lot of resources. There were actually none. Doctors were telling my parents that my brother will never talk, ever. And yes, he's selective mute. He talks when he wants to, but he is able to talk, like he can talk and he can write. If we can't really understand what he's trying to say, he can write it out.
Yeah.
Which is really great. But it comes with a lot of challenges before, and there's a lot of.
Were there experts that were there that could help shape the school for your family when they decided to create the school?
My mom brought like a curriculum. So she learned about everything she could. She brought every book and she brought it to Indonesia, and then she tries to, and she trains the teachers. Like we have special education graduates, but my mom has seen what happens here in the US, so she wanted up to that level, which is challenging. But we got it to where we need my brother to be, or that he was able to communicate. That was like our main thing, because until then, like our family dynamic was just so, oh my goodness, it was very interesting. Yeah, and so we reached that kind of resilience, but also at the same time, we continuously like struggle to maintain that different resilience as a family unit. And now that my family is older, my brother is older and I'm here. So that challenge again as a sibling for me, the guilt that I feel that I'm here, especially like in my culture, you just don't go. You don't go to like the other side of the world and try to do what you want to do. You follow what's being done before. So that's like a continuous challenge for me personally. But the opportunity, again, like I grew up with the disability community, and I saw what that advocacy looks like, the small A advocacy, the big A advocacy. I know what it looks like. And like now I'm in the field of special education. Well, I was, and now I'm working with the teachers and the family, and to make that bond stronger, to help individuals with disability. So.
Yeah.
I think I would say like a challenge for me growing up was like I had all this like extra responsibility without information, and like so I just knew I had to like do more, and I like kind of knew like why, but like I didn't really know like what was going on, or like me and my mom or anyone in my life really ever talked to me about like what an intellectual disability was, like why it happens, like the long-term impacts, like life planning. It was always just kind of this like looming thing that I knew was gonna like impact my life down the line, but like we never talked about it. So like that for me was just like really was and is like really challenging. But I also think like the like working with my sister and seeing kind of how her life has definitely just hugely impacted like my career trajectory and like the work that I do. And I feel really lucky for that. But I definitely think like the responsibility without like information was like really hard for a long time.
Yeah.
I strongly resonate with what Atikah shared in terms of that guilt, right? Being an immigrant and just being myself. Like, I think guilt has been a huge part of my life, and that's something that I continuously work on. I remember as a young child, I would think to myself, maybe if I had my share of the disability, maybe my sisters or my brothers would be less, or maybe if I had it, maybe they wouldn't have it. Like, I just often thought of why my siblings, right? And as I've said, like that's a continuous struggle. That's still something that I'm working on, because it has gotten to a point of not giving space for myself, just always putting my siblings first every single time. But in terms of opportunities and how it has influenced me, like my interest in mental health, definitely happened because of my experience with my siblings. I gained a better understanding of how it is to struggle and be part of that struggle, like based on firsthand experience. But I think the most important thing that it has given me is a deeper sense of compassion and kindness to individual with special needs and their families, because I takes one to know one, like I understand really how it is to be in this journey.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. Go ahead, Lyle. So you're.
Uh, I was gonna say, yeah, truly, I resonate with Elda because I do care about mental health a lot, and I actually recently got this behavior technician position for a company that I really wanted to work for, and yeah, mental health. I feel like definitely growing up in the Asian Pacific Islander community, it was definitely a stigma. You really don't talk about it at all. You kind of be resilient and just push on. I know my mom was definitely she was definitely a trooper in the sense of just taking care of not only me but also my two brothers. So all three boys just and then my dad, he did night shifts, so it was basically Monday through Friday, a single mother in the household, and she just like tough through it. And I would consider my mom like the strongest person I know, man or woman. And I know for a fact that that definitely influenced what I'm doing right now. Um, yeah, and I want to say that like not only do people on the spectrum have the disability, but there's also other things too that they experience, like depression, anxiety, all these like schizophrenia. And I definitely look out for my brothers whenever they feel lonely or anything or feel sad, and you can tell too, So, and that's the one thing I never want my brothers to just feel alone, and that just motivated my passion and my coursework. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I sometimes wonder what my life would be if I didn't have a brother with a disability. And I just can't even think of what other interests I would have, because I feel that even before I stepped into that role, I always knew that there would be a sense of responsibility. One of the things for me, I know I thought of earlier on was the fact that I chose not to have a family because I felt that at some point I would also, just as you mentioned, Sam, my mom is getting older, and recognizing that I'm going to end up on some level having to figure out what my brother's life looks like. So I feel like in those sense of being responsible, it does really alter some of the choices that we can choose to make. And then if we do choose, as you guys said, to just leave and go to the other side of the world, there's that sense of guilt of even just trying to carve out a little piece of your life for yourself. Kimrah, I saw your camera come off. Your mic. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I do, I can say I relate to a lot of our panelists today because, with me going into college, my sister and I were 10 years apart. So when I went off to college, I definitely felt guilty, and I had to get my sister back in arm's reach. So, moved here to Alaska. My mother was military. So that's how I came here in Alaska, and just hands-on from there. Now that she's an adult, we're just creating our bond. So we're both going through the challenges of, she wants to, adult life, date and hang out with friends her age. And, it's, at the same time, it's who do I talk to? Who do I talk to about this? Because I want to make sure she's going on the right path, being guided the right direction. And, it definitely taught me to be empathetic. It taught me to not judge, to talk with her, to, they have feelings as well. So to get the understanding, to create that stronger bond, and then we could go through life together, so she doesn't feel like she's alone either.
Mhm.
So just opening up more, I guess.
Yeah, no, that actually is a good segue to our next question, because you were mentioning just wondering who you would talk to. And so I'm curious to know, how diverse is your community of support, which could easily include other siblings, professionals, or friends that you feel you can reach out to about your brother or sister's disability? And I guess, do you guys feel it's important to have networks of support outside of your race, and why not?
I could say that my network of support is not, I mean, it's my mom. Like, I just didn't have it before. Like, I didn't even, when the pandemic started, I like was pursuing like therapy and like coaching because I was really struggling with my mental health a bunch. And as I was kind of unpacking that with folks, they like thought of this idea of community. And I just didn't even think, I think like similar to a lot of folks, that like this was like a thing that other people experience. Like I really felt alone in it. And I think ever since I've like come across this group and like these sessions and things like that, it's just made so much of a difference in like how I feel about like my future and my sister's future. Like I don't feel alone in it as much as I did before. So I definitely think having that support is just like really, really essential. And I hope in a couple of years, like I can answer that question and be like, oh, these are the differences in the supports. But right now, like this is kind of the start of the journey of support outside of my family.
Gotcha. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely important to just have a support system no matter what, for yourself and also for your brothers or your siblings. I know definitely my brothers are extroverted, and I'm very much on the introverted side. And growing up, what my brothers were involved in were the Special Olympics, and that was kind of like an entity where no matter what background you come from, you could bond through just the matter of sport, whether you're playing soccer, basketball, or anything like that. And I think it's just definitely important. And we came from a predominantly white American background or community where not only disability advocacy wasn't really spoke upon, but also I had to kind of like push aside my cultural background for a very long time, up until like high school. I didn't really like mention that I was a Filipino American, or when I did, it was just like here and there and stuff. And it felt like growing up, there was like kind of like a missing part of me. And later on, as I got into college and everything, and found out all about the Sibling Leadership Network, and also got more involved into my culture, joined student associations and whatnot. There's also like a lot of relatability too. I met some good friends who come from my similar background who also have special need siblings. So it's just like important to reach out, even if the resources isn't there right in front of your face. I think if you care, you should reach out and get the support.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Kimrah.
So I find myself using my situation, or I wouldn't say a situation, but the fact that I care for my sister and, you know, I'm here to defend her, protect her. I use that as a way to screen my relationships. And with that, I would say, I feel like my community isn't really diverse. I mean, I'm grateful that I have a, you know, good care coordinator for my sister, and I'm with part-time with an agency. And, you know, you could definitely see the transparency with those two individuals that I know. Reaching out to the community is pretty hard here for me. I tried, but you know, you do have the individuals, they don't know what's going on with you, and they just, you know, you have those situations and you have to correct them sometimes. And sometimes it's really not a good, you know, a good situation. But I feel like it is very important to have that community outside of your race, because you never know what resources there are. I've had a situation here where I wasn't told of a specific resource until I researched it myself, went back to the person, they're like, oh yeah, this and this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I wish you would have told me ahead of time. So having, a broad or just a lot to talk to and different people to talk to, that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Atikah, Elda, you guys want to chime in?
Sure. I think I'll have to speak to that in terms of like in two settings, in the Philippines and here in Toronto. So back in the Philippines, there weren't much support groups for siblings in particular. I remember having to join parents' support groups because there were none for siblings. Right? And here in Toronto, there is one called Sibling Collaborative. It's actually for the entire Canada. And it has been a great resource for me to be part of, to get to know siblings from Sibling Collaborative. So I do think I'd like to echo what Kimrah has said in terms of like the value of expanding your network outside your own race, because I do think that race brings in a unique experience to being a sibling, but there's also this huge piece of commonality in it as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And Atikah, I'll jump to you in a second. I definitely found, I'm also a member of our Developmental Disabilities Council and was the former chair of that organization, as well as a couple other organizations here in Washington, D.C. And what I found with mainly the sibling groups that I am affiliated with, that I am in many cases the only person of color, Black person in the room. But I was more curious about wanting to be part of this discussion because I really was able to connect with a few people that did not look like me, but when I had challenges with things that were happening with my family, I felt that I got a lot of the support that I needed. I felt in some ways, is there something different that I might be missing out on because I don't have the community that's before us now to be able to talk about different experiences? Is there anything different generationally? Is there anything different in a Black home that was different in families that are white that have a brother or sister with a disability? And I saw that Emily posted some resources through the Sibling Leadership Network. If you guys have not had a chance to, please jump on their Facebook group that they have. I've seen a variety of different stories that come through there that you could just change the name, and some of the frustrations and challenges that they have, I can equally share into some of those same stories. Yeah, so I definitely am just curious more so of like, why haven't we felt comfortable, or maybe we just don't know where to find some of these supports of our own community to where we don't have to feel like we're living in silos. Atikah, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. So like Elda, I think because most of my life was in Indonesia, no resources. So growing up, it was just like the support is from like the family members, mostly my dad, because my mom is very busy with my brother. So I'm very, very close with my dad, and other family members like grandma or aunts and uncles, cousins. They're like, that other person who's the same age as me that I can talk to. So in Indonesia, yeah, there weren't a lot of resources. And when I came here, I wasn't looking for resources because I was used to not having them. So I was not looking for it because I thought it was all okay. But then I started to dive, because I've been in academia, like I've been going to school nonstop. That's how I started to look on those and reflect on those issues like on my own before I go and look for those resources. And like now I am in that support group on Facebook, the SibNet, and I know we're all diverse in there, but I can resonate with a lot of other siblings, even though I'm an international student, but I can definitely resonate with a lot of their struggle and a lot of their little victories, right? My brother
Exactly.
with it.
Yep.
Yeah. And you feel happy with them and for them. But because of that upbringing too, like I'm still learning how to reach out for those resources and for support. And if I do get resources, I give them out to people. I barely use it for myself.
Yeah.
Because of that thing, like I'm putting myself in the back seat and I'm putting everyone else in front. So once I do get the resources, I give it to other people and not really reflecting and use it for myself. So like this is actually like the first step I'm actually talking as a sibling, and it's a big step. And because again, a lot of us coming from that background who doesn't really talk about these kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think in many cases too, when we do get these resources and able to share, we are then also giving them the tools to empower themselves with things that they may not have known was out there as well. So thank you guys for that. We have about 10 minutes left. I have a couple more things I wanted to chat about. So I ask this next question for everyone here. So today it's Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And so I just kind of want to start with one of his quotes. It speaks to, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Given the recent events that have highlighted structural, institutional, and personal racism against BIPOC individuals, how have you thought about your siblings' experience in different ways? How do you think we can move forward as a community of BIPOC siblings, white siblings, and people of all backgrounds to support one another? And I'll open that up. Not all at once. Go, Kimrah.
All right, well, I've definitely thought about, with everything going on, my sister's safety, her education, her well-being, especially alone in public, you know, because you just never know. A lot of, you know, having the interaction with the police, which I've had to have here, a lot of them aren't trained, and I had to bring that to their attention. So it is pretty scary, and, you know, reaching out and, you know, having that lifeline or someone to check up on your sibling in case you are not around, it makes you feel more comfortable. Definitely keep advocating. So.
Well, I think I'm speaking in terms of seeing how in the future, for me personally, because I do want to bring my brother here so I can support him better. But the last 4 years just been very challenging to convince myself that I can do that, because I'm Muslim and it's like I'm out there, I'm wearing a hijab, so it's very easy to identify that I'm a Muslim. And I've seen people staring, and that fear that comes with, what are they going to do? Like, this is very uncomfortable. So my thoughts the past couple of years is that if I'm not convinced that I'll be safe here, how can I support my brother? But, you know, I think for all of us, siblings, practitioners, everyone in this field, it's very important to be an ally. And, you know, being an ally cannot happen without providing a space for BIPOC people to talk about, for the said ally to listen and ask questions, like right now. And holding this difficult conversation, I think it's the best way to educate people so they know how to be the best ally and to support each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, to add with what Atikah shared, I think forums like this are great opportunities to have our individual and collective voices be heard. But I think it's really important as well to be connected with each other. Like, this connection with each other that we makes us more accountable for each other, especially in times when we couldn't count on institutions that's meant to protect us.
Exactly.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what everyone has said. I would just add, I think specifically in the Black community, really figuring out like how to have just like more like public and open conversations about like disabilities and like knowing that they exist. I know like my mom in my community is like really an exception in a lot of ways. Like she got my sister like into the system where she's like getting benefits and stuff like that. But a lot of her friends really didn't want their kids to have like that label. So now they're like in their mid-20s and they don't have like any of those supports, but they also don't have the skills to like actually be like fully independent. So I think when I think about what it looks like to really like care about one another and like move forward, I really think about, especially in the Black community, how we can get rid of a lot of the stigma around disability use and how we can really like support each other as opposed to just like fighting like the labels and just like setting our kids really up for a not successful future.
Yeah, definitely. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to ask you guys this final question, and you can choose here. So the question is going to be, what advice would you give to either a young sibling, parents, or service providers? And so I'd like for each of you to respond, but to just pick one or more than one if you would like, but just to respond what kind of advice you would give to younger siblings, parents, or service providers.
Well, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Elda.
Oh, okay. So I think the advice that I would give to family, siblings, service providers is take care of yourself. And that's because I do think that one of the greatest resources that an individual with special needs has is a supportive family, supportive caregivers, supportive service providers. However, we're not just that. We're not only a resource. We are our own person. We have our own lives and our own needs. And I hope we never lose ourselves in that. We never lose ourselves in loving our siblings because they surely do not want that for ourselves as well.
So true.
Can I like format it in like a word of advice?
Absolutely.
I'd say like, I guess to younger siblings that you're stronger than you think you are. I know there's gonna be times when like you just want to give up and everything, but what always like pulls me through is that knowing that my brothers love me and my parents love me and they rely on me, and that's like a cycle too. I rely on them, so it's like a system, and in essence that kind of just pushes me to do better, and then also that is kind of like an unconscious kind of light, because if I believe my brothers believe in me, and that's like everything. And if I believe in my parents and their support and they believe in me, that's also everything too. So it's just like, also you're not alone through this struggle, especially just like figuring out this community that I'm very thankful that I reached out to a couple years back, and very thankful to be a panelist right now and speaking to everyone here. But just know that, yeah, you're not alone, and that you're stronger than what you think. So
Appreciate you saying that, Lyle. Anyone else?
So Elda definitely hit the nail on the head for me, because I'm still being told to take care of yourself, so that's definitely my number one. But just don't give up. I know sometimes you feel like you're running into a brick wall, but there's someone out there with an answer, even a listening ear, that make you feel better. Just build a support system, or even if it's just, you know, a friend to talk to, hopefully they understand, and, you know, and they'll just help you find some resources, and just be as open as much as possible.
Oh, go ahead, Atikah.
For siblings, like I'm echoing all of you, I think siblings in all ages, that you're not alone, and we're connected in a way that we can relate to each other's struggles, even though we're very individual, like we're very personalized, right? Our struggles are different, but in a way like we can relate. And so actively build that community to support each other is very, very important. And for service providers, I think my advice would be to listen to us, siblings. Like we know our siblings and we can help you to support our siblings, but also we're limited to what we know and we have limited resources. So we would love to hear from you and be given that support and resources from you so we can support our siblings to the best of our ability. So working together, I think, is the best way, and for everyone, so we can support our siblings and also ourselves, because if we don't have that kind of support, it's getting difficult to also live to be ourselves, right?
Yeah. Awesome. And Sam, did you have a chance to respond?
No, not yet. I think my advice would be like pretty similar. It's like for siblings, like find a support network, and like I think like share your truth. Like I think there's just so many feelings I've had over the years. It's been like a roller coaster about like being a sibling and like frustrations and things like that. And I think I've held a lot of that in because like I didn't want to add to my parents, right? My parents had so much going on. I didn't want to add to that. I don't want to be an additional stress. That was always a big thing for me, to not be a cause of stress for my parents. But like figuring out how to find that and not being afraid to ask for that support, because I definitely think I waited a little too long and I wouldn't want anyone else to do the same thing.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I think if I had to think about that question too, one of the things that I recognize in myself is that I definitely felt that my mother as a single mom had enough going on, and just raising the three of us, that I often found myself not wanting to raise my hand and say that I have a problem of any kind too, because I felt that she had a lot to deal with. And I think that it cheapened me on being able to find my own voice. So I'm too just trying to learn and figure out that as well. Before we go to the questions, we talked about a few different resources. What I do want to mention to everyone here is that the Sibling Leadership Network, there actually is a conference that's going to be coming up in June of this year, the weekend of June 17th. And if you go to their website, I believe Emily posted in the chat, but it's siblingleadership.network.org. Emily, if you can correct that and add that in again, I'd appreciate it. You would be able to see updates about the conference. So I wanted to make sure I put in a plug for that, as well as letting many of you know on the call, especially those that are siblings, that there are chapters of the Sibling Leadership Network that are across 27 states. And I am the DC chapter representative. Jeniece, I will come back to you to see if there are any questions for anyone on the on our roundtable tonight.
Yes, you guys do have some questions, and wow, I learned so much. I'm all feels right now. So question 1, do you feel comfortable speaking with your siblings about your concerns?
Yes. I feel comfortable. I mean, since I have my sister here with me, I definitely try to stay really close with her getting older, or with us getting older, and trying to, understand the feelings, and, and trying to understand the feelings, and, push them, or not push them in the right direction, but have her form, a structured opinion and a good thought, what I'm saying? Get her on the right track, not just throw out there to the wolves and, and just, so yes, I feel open.
It's the same for me. My siblings and I have a great relationship. We're very open. I am assured that they know I love them, although they know that this has also been difficult for me. So for the most part, yes. But there's also the piece on when I talk to my brother about it, he'd be like, "Okay, I'm not interested. There's a new game that I'm playing." Like,
Yeah.
For me, I honestly have never tried it. Honestly, I think that's like next for me is like trying to have those conversations with my sister. I think and I really hope that like that does like more kind of adult things for our relationship. Like I don't think I ever had a conversation with my sister as like an adult to an adult.
Yeah, and if I can answer that too, I think in some ways over the years, being part of Michael's IP meetings and so forth, I never really knew fully if he understood until one day I was leaving from a visit at our mom's house, and he just stopped me and embraced me in a hug and thanked me. And that just melted me because I just didn't really think that he got the it of everything that I had been doing, leaving work early, being part of these meetings, making the phone calls, jeopardizing my own employment, and just trying to make sure that I could be at the table with and for him. So that he, like you said, he'd go off to play his game or go do something else when you're trying to have what you feel is an important conversation. But that hug in that moment for me made me realize that he did get it.
For me, I guess my brother is like Elda. So I would say things, I would talk to him. He would be interested for a little bit and he'd be like, okay, bye. But I've asked him like, who do you want to live with when you're older? Because we don't have like things like here. So it's either me or my younger brother, right? You want to live with me or your younger brother? And he would look at me like, you, duh. I mean, right? You're the older sister. You're like I've known you longer, kind of. I think what he's saying, but it would just like be like that, and in the sense that it's joking, and we always try to make it light in a way that it's just not too stressful for a conversation.
And then for me, I think I relate with Samantha the most. I don't necessarily have like, I've never really had like a adult to adult conversation with my brother, even though I'm 23 and my brother, who is a highly functioning, is 26. But I think he kind of like gets it in the sense that we're getting older and our parents are getting older too. So it's kind of slowly kind of realizing, oh, like Lyle's growing up. I think I need to like grow up a little bit too. So it's just those little reminders that that I have to give him every now and then. But yeah.
Thank you all for answering that question. We have another question for you. I'm a grad student doing research aimed at better understanding the experiences of siblings of individuals with disabilities. Is there anything that you want me and people like me doing research in this area to know?
I would like to add, because I've actually got accepted to some grad schools, but we'll be applying for more grad schools in the upcoming year. And my focus will be on psychology. And I'm definitely going to focus on mental health with people with disabilities. So anyone who focuses on that, I highly respect, because like I said before in the panel, that there's a stigma, especially in the Asian American community and any other BIPOC community too, that mental health isn't really like spoken upon of, or isn't really that focused as compared to now, and it's great. So I think research should definitely be more pushed upon more, and yeah, I think people definitely should focus more on mental health on top of disabilities. So yeah.
I would say individuals with special needs and disabilities, definitely focus on them as a person, not just their disability or their special needs, because they have wants and feelings like everyone else. So, you know, their wants and their feelings are important, and they just need help to express it sometimes, or to, like us, find resources to help them through their daily lives, and they want that as well.
I would say, besides the needs of our siblings, is to also emphasize the needs of ourselves as siblings, as people who are supporting our siblings. Stuff like how we can put up a better kind of support for them, like where to access specific types of support, funding, or anything like that. So just so the process of supporting them would be easier for us.
Yeah, and to echo Elda, to understand that there's a lot of research from the parent's perspective of understanding experience of the sibling. If we can get more from the sibling's perspective itself, from them right away, I think we can get more of raw and natural responses. And I know it's hard to do this in a research with little kiddos, but that's the art, I guess, of figuring out, right? Like how to extract them to get, because, you know, with the little kiddos, maybe the language that they still don't know how to express it to us in a qualitative way. But yeah, I think I would just say, like, listen from the siblings right away, more, instead of the parent's perspective or the other family member's perspective.
I would only add, like, really listen for nuance. I think, like, as siblings, we have like so much in common about like what we've experienced, but there's also just like really key differences, and I wouldn't want kind of to this point, knowing there isn't a lot of research yet about siblings, I wouldn't want to like paint us with like too narrow of a brush, just because like our experiences do have really important differences.
I appreciate that, you all. We have one last question here. Would it have helped to be part of your siblings' care team and understanding their diagnosis and care plans? How can siblings guide a sibling's care plan?
So for me, I do think that it would have helped for sure. But I think another important question to ask is, do we want to be part of our siblings care team? Right? For siblings to be given that option to be part of it or not, depending on their decision.
Go ahead, Kimrah.
Okay. I think it's very important to be a part of your siblings' care team, just so growing up, you'll know how to apply everything that you're being, that's given to you, because sometimes not everyone will be able to sit down and go over everything. It's just, if you're there, then you're experiencing it firsthand. But like Elda said, is, it might be a little stressful for you, but it's, it's all up to the sibling, yes, but, a little bit more knowledge in order to help take care of your sibling or your loved one is definitely helpful.
Yeah, I definitely agree that a choice should be there first and foremost for siblings. I know for myself, when I did play an integral role in aligning my brother's team, I could tell where the gaps were so that I could help make sure that the roles and responsibilities were aligned in a way, anything from his transportation to him getting his medication and those things. And if one person fell off because they took on another job, then I needed to be the one to help facilitate those conversations with other members of the team. Some of the barriers there for us is that my mother, being older, she didn't have email, so she's not really computer savvy. So a lot of times the way that people were communicating to us was through technology that she didn't have the means of getting. I'm just so glad that she has now learned to text. Well, it's a blessing and a curse, but in many cases, it does help now that my brother's staff person, if he can't make it, now instead of just texting me, he can also text her. Because what I've started trying to do now is to just start empowering my mother so that she could better understand a lot of the things that I was taking on too. And she definitely appreciates it even more now that she sees how all those parts are connected to give him that whole life experience that he deserves.
And yes, I agree with all of you guys. In a way, I think this needs to be something that's periodically, like it's continuous. When we talk about that caretaking role, yes, it needs to be up to the sibling, right? Like if they really want to do it, and yes, it is going to be very, very beneficial if they are included in these care plan. But what I think for me, what is the key in this is to dip the siblings' toes as early as possible and not leave them in the dark. And then when they reach that high school years and then they realize, oh my goodness, I have an older sibling who's gonna need my help, and what is my future gonna look like? Am I gonna be able to have my own family? Or so really supporting the sibling from in a very young age, and supporting them in a way that it's age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, and then leave it up to them if they would like to. But up to that point, they already know so much about their sibling, right? They are informed and they know what's going to happen if they are involved or if they aren't involved. So I think that's from my 2 cents.
Kind of piggybacking off, right, Atikah's saying, I think, yeah, the early exposure, the better. And basically being educated at an early age, the better. Not only for you, but for your siblings, because that kind of sets the foundation of care for pretty much the rest of their lives. So I think, yeah, just early exposure is the best. Yeah.
And one thing I'll add here too is if siblings are involved with the team for their brother or sister, one of the things I think that is helpful is creating a list of contacts and a list of medications, just a list of things that everything that you should and need to know about your sibling, just so that it's at your fingertips, list of doctors and things like that, just so that you can just kind of package it in a way. It's important. I'll just say that much. It's very important.
Well, there aren't any other questions, but I have a question as a parent, because we have some time and I just want to sneak my question in here.
You're loud.
As a parent, what could we do to be more supportive. Because like you were saying, Atikah, there are a lot of resources and there's a lot of support for parents. And especially as you're getting into adulthood, having those conversations, what would be the best, or in your suggestion, in your opinion, how do we even approach the conversations with the siblings? You say start young, or, make sure you're having these conversations, but being a parent here, there's nothing wrong you could say. I think sometimes we just don't know how to have the conversation. So any pointers or suggestions for parents?
I would say don't force it, because they should already have their sibling bond. If hopefully they'll have their sibling bond by then, because forcing it on them would most likely cause a resentment. Like, why do I have to do this? Why do I do that? So, just explain to them, your sister or your brother might need a little bit more help. Are you okay with helping them? Or at least, so they can still have their fun time as siblings. But, have.
I would say just like check in a lot. Like my mom had like that conversation with me when I was like 7 or 8. And I don't honestly remember us talking about it again until I was like in college. Like, no exaggeration. We were both just like, this thing exists and we're both dealing with it. So I think like she was probably having a lot of like her feelings about it. I was having all these other feelings about it. I didn't want to be an additional burden because I did recognize it as like additional work. So my advice would just be like, check in, and even if it's only like once, like you said, a day, like once a year, where you're like, how's it go? How's it go? Like open the conversation, because I do think for me as a sibling who's like a pretty high achieving sibling, both me and my brother went to like Ivy League schools and stuff like that. We were just really focused on making it as easy as possible. So we weren't going to be the ones to like start that conversation. So for me, it would just be like, try and build in opportunities to check in. I feel like organic, and like other folks have said, like don't provide a lot of pressure, but also open it up in case your sibling is ready to talk about how they're feeling about, the whole situation.
Yes, definitely that checking in is very important. Well, to tell you the truth, my parents never really talked about me until now, and I'm 27. But I think for them, they don't want me to feel burdened that I will be the one who's gonna take the role of the caretaking. It's just that when I was done with bachelor's, I think I just graduated. I was just alone with my dad and like doing my passport in this office. And I was talking to him about what I wanted to do next. And I told him like, well, Zaki's gonna be with me. And he stopped and he looked at me and he was like, well, how did you come up to that conclusion? And I said, well, he's gonna be with me. And I just take that role. But he was very shocked and he didn't think I would take that role. But that's just my dad. He was just, he didn't want to burden his other children, right? This is a little hard. But my parents are amazing. They're amazing parents and they're doing whatever they can to support all of their children, me and my other 2 brothers. But if there were more explanation, if there were more discussion and open discussion, and my parents, even though our backgrounds in an Asian household, they're pretty open to different kinds of discussion. I just wish we had that because like Sam said, like you as a sibling, you don't want to burden them. You reach high, like you're the one kid has no issues, right? Because your parents already have to work with their brothers for their own challenges. But if I had that kind of conversation with my parents, I think that would have been so much more helpful and open more doors to other types of communication between us.
Can I add something else? Oh, sorry.
Okay. So there definitely are a lot of things that parents can do to support siblings, but I'll just go back to the basic because I did share that like at a certain point, I have lost myself in loving my siblings too much. I think it would have helped if I have heard from my parents that I matter, like that I am valued as well, that my opinion is important and that I have a choice. That just that feeling of I don't have to carry all of this.
Were you gonna say something, Kimrah?
I was just going to say that just don't forget your other children as well, just giving them a little bit of attention as well. Letting, you know, it's not only, even though everything's focused around your special needs sibling, but just making sure they're incorporated as well and not feeling left out.
Yeah, I'll agree with everyone. Just being attentive to what the sibling is feeling, or the sibling without the disability, or yeah, just basically checking in and seeing just the simple question is like, how are you doing? Because those words and those type of actions can mean a lot, especially at a younger age. I know my dad, even though I didn't see him a lot, just him checking in on me every now and then, just, yeah, meant the world to me, so.
Well, I really appreciate you guys like really sharing those raw and real feelings. And it's really going to help, I think, not just myself, but also parents that are on here and that will listen back to this conversation that you guys are having, that you had this evening. And I just want to thank you all for just being a part of this incredible, incredible roundtable. I appreciate you sharing your time with us, your experience with us, your voice and your truth with us. Not just for me as a parent and from a parent perspective, but from the others, for the other siblings that are on here listening, for the community members that are on here listening, educators, the doctors, the therapists, everybody, because your opinion really does matter. And it's so important and it's so invaluable. And I learned so much today. I felt so much today. I mean, I'm holding back tears, trying not to be overly emotional, but I'm just filled with so much love right now. And I feel it from each one of you sitting here. Even when your sister came in and joined the conversation, it's just, you don't have conversations like this every day. And as redundant, as much as we've been on Zoom meetings and Skype meetings since the pandemic has hit, it's nice to be able to come together and to hear your heart. And I really, truly appreciate you, Lisa, for moderating this incredible roundtable and for engaging with all of you guys. I appreciate you all. I appreciate everybody that joined us today. This experience is like none other. I'm overwhelmed with so much love. There will be resources that are going to be sent to your email. There will be a survey sent to your email to everybody that's been on, and we will be sharing this. So you can be able to replay it and share with your community, share with people that you know that might want to hear it, and look out for the next one because it will happen again. This is not the last time we'll be doing it. And as Lisa said, there is a sibling leadership network. They have a conference coming up this year. So please get engaged, join the Facebook groups that they have. You can find our organization on Instagram at special_needs_siblings, where we have sibling conversations. If you guys would like to join us on a live one day, I would love to have you on. I would love to hear and have you just share your stories. If you know of any resources, please let us know. Please reach out to these siblings and continue to stay in contact with everybody. Thank you again for this amazing evening. Thank you for being a part of the second BIPOC Adult Sibling Roundtable. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Peace and love.